Call this meeting to order. It is June 12th, 2025, and you're at the Executive Stancog Board meeting. Roll call, please.
Chair Condit,
Here.
Member Chiesa,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Carr,
Here.
Member Swallen is absent, and Member Hernandez is absent, but we do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Thank you. This time it's time for public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on any item not on the agenda. Comment shall be limited to 5 minutes unless the chair of the committee sets a different time. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
No.
Okay, none. I'll bring it back to the board. Close public comment. Consent calendar. Any executive board member like to discuss anything on consent? Couple minutes. Good, George? Good. Okay. Any member of the public like to speak on any consent item?
No, Mr. Chair.
I'll bring it back to the board for a motion. I have a first. Second. And a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Discussion items. Discussion 5A, Measure L funds received and investment recap report update. Cindy.
I'm going to take this item. Good afternoon, members. You are familiar with this report. It's on your agenda to the Executive Committee and the Policy Board every month, giving you an update on the Measure L funds received and investment recap. We are modifying it a little bit for you today. If you see on your agenda page 16, where we've included a chart that itemizes expenditures, not just the revenues like before, but with the expenditures each month that have been expended using that 1% of the Outreach and Education Campaign money. So we've included that in this report based on some comments we received at the Management and Finance Committee. You might remember last month. We also brought it to the board last month to get your input on this. And so we just wanted to show you how we've incorporated that information into this report, and going forward, we will be including this every month as well. At last week's Management and Finance Committee, they asked that in addition to, just the total amount of money of the expenditures, they wanted a little bit more information on what actually the money is used for. So that probably will be a little bit more that we add to this as well.
How,
Use your mic.
left my glasses sitting on my desk. So this is the money collected, because this is so small, the revenue received. If I look at August, I'm squinting, and then the expenditure and the difference. And so does that difference carry forward?
That's what was brought up, that the Management of Finance wants to know what
Yeah.
we want to do with that money. So I think, and probably in August, we'll be bringing back the policies and procedures. Wasn't that the appropriate place to modify if we're going to change what we do with that extra money? I
Okay,
mean, this is the first year, so we haven't had this situation before where we have the money or not. So it's up to the board to decide if you want to return it to the agencies if we don't use it, if we carry it over, or something else.
but I'm just confirming the bottom line is cumulative, right? It's
For this
cumulative.
year.
Yeah, it's cumulative. So, and then you have parentheses because really you haven't collected the revenue and there's no expectation. So you shouldn't have anything written in there, should you? And May, June, July,
Don't have that money yet. So by August, we should have a clearer picture on what was actually brought in and what was spent. And then we can have, read that information for you all to decide what you think should be
So the 445,000 is what's been brought in to date,
to date.
and we have 200 and
Yeah.
261
Left right now.
left, right? Okay, so now we just need 251. Now we just need the expenditure list of what we did with the money. That's what's been requested.
And basically it's
In
been
addition to
on
this.
the contract.
Because at 12 months is 3 months. I know we got started late, right? And spending money. But since we only have 3 more months, we'll have to do a determination at the end of the first year if we're going to refund the money or refund some of the money. Because I think we had talked about that a little bit, that you can't refund all of the money and start with zero again. You got to keep some sort of reserve. I think that's where we got caught up.
Coming up with an amount for the reserve.
Reserve, yeah, $200,000 or something, but are we going to agendize that, have that discussion?
So the plan was to bring this back, hopefully in August, but now that I'm just even thinking when Cindy brought up about the funding, we won't have a true up until probably August 31st, I think is how it works. And so it'd be September when we actually know how much money revenue was brought in. I mean, I don't know, unless we go by projections, it might be more appropriate to bring this back to the management and finance and the board, maybe September.
But we have to have a policy in
Yes.
place for what,
Right. We could
That's-
discuss the policies in August. Yeah, we could definitely do that. That was our plan, but
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the public?
So this was just an update for you.
Okay. I'll bring it back. No action needed.
Yep.
Moving on to 5B, motion to recommend the policy board to approve by resolution the fiscal year 2025-26 Transportation Development Act, TDA, apportionments for transit and other purposes, and fiscal year 2025-26 allocations for transit. Rose,
thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the executive committee. Rosa Park here, your executive director. I'm taking this item for Jean Falletta today that it's not available. She's actually handling something else for Stancog at this moment. But this item, it's your annual process that we do regarding as the designation, we're the designating agency for the Transportation Development Act. And that includes the funding that is submitted for our transit operations, our planning work that we do here for the region. So with that, in February, you all approve a projection of what the what kind of sales tax of receipts we're going to be receiving for this local transportation funds. It's a projection that we work with your treasury of the county to get approved. We had an approval of 32 million, I believe it was what it was. From that, staff meets and has to do two things. One is an analysis of our region to ensure that we don't have any unmet need of transit services or anything like that there are any issues to do with transit before this allocation could be recommended to you to provide for the claims or approvals of the budgets for the transit operators. That process has been completed, and what we found is that there's no unmet needs that are reasonable to meet. So therefore, that's something that allows us to continue to move forward. The other item is the staff needs to meet with the operators to ensure what their budgets review, ensure that they're compliant, because that's, again, this is not our money. We're just the designation to allocate the funding, but it's the state's funds, and the state requires that all agencies are in compliance. So staff meets with all the operators, they review their budgets, they go over all the compliance matters. Everyone is in compliance, meaning the MOVE program, that is your consolidated transportation services agencies for the region, and also your new entity, Stan RTA, who is your region's transit operator for the region, with the exception of Turlock. Turlock has its own, and Turlock is not in compliant right now with their audits. So the staff's recommendation for this item is to approve the transit claims, but withholding City of Turlock's claim until they are compliant, because Stancog would be issued a problem if we try to allocate the funds with knowing that they're not in compliance.
I was going to ask you, what is the penalty if we issued funds for somebody that is not compliant?
So the statute regarding this, because we are the agency allocating the funds, we could lose our designation of an agency that is allocating these funds because we're not following what we're required. We signed these agreements with the state saying that, yes, that we will ensure that everyone follows the rules, just like we have to follow them for the planning work that we do, because we are audited ourselves on this fund.
So I think this brings up the broader question, and I know we joke around about it with Turlock, but Turlock was deficient last year. I know they struggled through to get their audits. I thought maybe they were going to catch up because it's repetition, but it seems to be a systemic problem. And that worries me about the fare box recovery and the other metrics that we used to use. Now I know that they've been stayed because of some legislation, but I think that we need to have a real discussion, at least between Stan RTA and how they're operating efficiency wise versus this, because when we do TDA claims, people are going to want to buy new buses. I know there's a new not a transit center, a corp yard that they were talking about potentially building, and we have to be able to determine based on the facts of where the efficiency lies. And anyways, I think that that's going to be an important thing going forward, not just continuing to pay claims. Yeah.
Hey, Vito. As a member of the policy board for Stan RTA, I've had discussions with some of the members of the Turlock Council to encourage them to at least bring a member to the table for Stan RTA, not necessarily become a member of Stan RTA, but at least come to the table so that we can have discussions that if there are things that affect their transit, we can help, or if they are doing things that affect ours, we can make corrections. But haven't really gotten any feedback on that, but I am encouraging them to come to the table.
So I appreciate that. There's no incentive without fare box recovery, because there used to be that component that kept us all in check, and we ended up with an issue in series, which was horrible for this board to find series. But it was, now that that metric has been removed through COVID, and it hasn't come back. But I need to see the efficiency of both systems, because it seems like Stan RTA is clicking on all cylinders. And I'm assuming that it's a lot more efficient. Working together creates efficiency too, is what you're talking about, like to make sure we don't have two buses going on the same route. But if the facts are presented and there's a world of difference, then it's a different discussion with the council and Turlock versus, because now if we continue to fund them at the maximum level, they can run their service level, right? And we just got to be careful.
I just wanted to mention, you kind of have jumped ahead already.
Sorry.
We're going to be hearing a little bit more about the transit issues at the policy board meeting. On the agenda for policy board, there is a triennial performance audit report.
Yeah.
Rosa, you might want to expand on that, but I think it has some comments about the Turlock and
Yeah.
So every 3 years we are audited, not only, our annual financial audit, but every 3 years there's an audit on the transit. And so this is what we've completed that, and our consultants will be presenting a report.
The audit.
Speak about that.
This is above and beyond what Turlock's required and Stan RTA on their own audits, right?
This
Yes.
is another audit. Yeah,
Yes.
it's another audit.
But it
because
will include some information about Turlock's.
performance.
I have one other question. Going back to my previous comment, as a policy member for Stan RTA, and this can directly affect them, should I recuse myself from any motion or voting that may go towards Stan RTA, or is it okay for me to vote on the motions, both here and next week?
that-
So thank you for the question. So the TDA statute and the StanCog transit cost sharing procedures govern the allocation as to how the TDA funds are allocated for transit, which would include Turlock Transit and Stan RTA. So while we bring it to the board for approval, the statute and those cost sharing procedures identify how funding is distributed. So there's not much discretion to change those numbers. Also, it doesn't have a personal financial implication for you, so an actual conflict would not exist. So you, if you wanted to, you could vote on the item.
Thank you for that, Monica. Yep. Any other questions? All right, any public comment on this agenda item? And none, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
The triennial audit is next week.
The transit audit next week, yes.
They could not, it wasn't ready for your meeting today. We wanted it, but they were not ready. So they're going to present, the auditor will be here at your board meeting.
I have a first,
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. All right, moving on to 5C, draft June policy board agenda.
So next Wednesday's board meeting, we will have the item that Rosa just mentioned about the apportionments. We also, like I just mentioned, we'll have the consultants give a report on the triennial performance audit of the transit operators. And then we also have completed the Emmett Transit Needs analysis report that will be brought to the board for consideration. As Rosa mentioned, there were no findings of any unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. So I think, Rosa, you were mentioning perhaps that could go on to consent if.
Well,
that-
as you may recall, we had this item presented to you already and discussed. There was a public hearing at this board.
Yeah.
So I think it's been brought to you twice already. So I didn't know, this is the final document, but if you wanted us to discuss it, we can, or I thought maybe if it could just go in consent. Yes. Leave it on there? Okay,
Just-
leave it on.
And besides those three items, then we will have a closed session. And that is next week's meeting.
Okay. We'll leave it as is.
And we're dark in July, and then the next meeting will be in August.
Give you a break.
Any public comment on this agenda item? And then I'll bring it back for motion to keep as,
No motion needed.
no motion needed? All right, good enough.
The staff will just bring this to the board as it's going on your
Sounds
agenda.
all right. Executive Director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Executive Committee. I will be very brief on this item, but I did want to, I'm super excited. On Friday evening, we learned that the California Transportation Commission was going to be releasing any of the grant awardees who will be receiving any of the SB1 programs, or grant funds that had been applied. StanCog applied for 3 out of this SB1 programs, and out of the 3, and we take a chance. We just we don't know. I mean, a lot of the money seems like a lot of money, but you're limited to a lot of the regions. They try to spread your project's got to be the best because you're competing against the whole state of California and other regions. And our project, out of the 3 that we submitted for allocation, we received 2. So one is our regional transportation, and our regional project is the State Route 132 West. We received, we're in the list for the CTC at their June 26, 27 meeting in Sacramento we're on the list for recommendation to receive $67 million for that one project. And then our other project is the 7th Street Bridge, and we requested a 15 million, and they they gave us what we requested also. Again, we're in the list. I don't like to jump up and say hooray yet until the CTC gives us that approval on that night when they approve the list. Because, there's people that go and talk at the CTC and, anything could change, but the recommendation is on their list to award 2 of the 3 projects that we had submitted.
That's great news.
And I just want to say that this doesn't happen alone. First, it starts with this board having that leadership and that focus to allow your staff to go after projects like this and these grant opportunities. So thank you, Mr. Chair. You've been very supportive. All of you here on the executive committee have been extremely supportive, but the board in itself, at the end of the day, you all make those recommendations. So the staff is grateful to all of you.
We're grateful for staff because it doesn't happen without staff's work on it. And that they have just been absolutely fantastic in going out there and competing for those state dollars and being very successful. And this just doesn't happen without their work.
Thank you. It takes a lot of team to get all this going, but I do want to say something, and I have to say it because it gets lost. We do planning work and people think, oh, what are you guys doing? Paperwork and outreach and all these planning meetings. The work that comes out of Elizabeth Hahn's department and her herself, we couldn't be here if she had not got us our sustainable community strategies approved. And that lady worked really hard to make sure, and we were the first one in the valley. We stayed quiet. No one knew we had our approval. We didn't go and announce it. We just were happy. We were happy for ourselves because we knew the struggle that the valley was having to get their approval. And there's still some valley members that are still trying to get their SESs approved from the last cycle. We're in the new cycle
Excuse me. So we're not eligible for the state funding
Yeah,
without that.
without that
SES approved.
SES, correct?
And also, isn't there matching funds from Measure L that we wouldn't be eligible?
Yeah,
for
so
this
we're
one?
leveraging. This is the only reason all of this is happening is those things. We got our SES approved. And because we have it allows us to go and get this funding. Secondly, Cindy's right. We have a measure.
Don't have
That measure has been our way to. It's amazing. So we're leveraging. And
Great
we're
news.
keep getting that project. So Terry Withrow, I know he's not here, but I want to just, he's another one that's been very helpful and supportive with this project. I mean,
Thank you for that report. Member reports. All right. Next regular scheduled executive committee meeting will be August 11th, 2025 at 12 p.m. They're adjourned. Elizabeth